Our conditions shifting back to mildly bearish in this bull market. Bull market rank of 26.87. Continuing to see just a slight deterioration here in the overall internals, seeing momentum starting to shift back into that a non-trending location, and also looking at the breadth indicator, giving us that middle of the range perspective. Also, we're seeing a sentiment still not rallying with the market. We're continuing to see this lower sentiment right here. We're also seeing some shifts in sectors. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at buy-sell ratio first. We're seeing that buy-sell ratio sitting at 0.9, so less than 1 right here. You can see that red just slightly above green right here. Bears in control, basically flat right now, but just slight edge towards the bearish side. We are seeing that here in S&P 500, relatively tight, but starting to weaken in the overall trend profile, and we're getting this support range, just this tight range between 586 and about that 575 range. It feels a little bit more volatile, but it is relatively tight right here. We are seeing bonds strengthen slightly, but this is still a concern right here. We're seeing bond prices continuing to fall. We're now in that downtrend location where we could see some support here around this 90, but ultimately it's got a lot of work to do to start to move back to the upside. That's going to start to play on economic reports and labor reports and inflationary reports, things like that. Let's take a look at the sectors. This is what I was referring to earlier. We're starting to see continued weakness. We got that 3 or 4 in the buy range, less and less now in that hold range. We're starting to accumulate a few more of these sells. We're starting to see energy-based material, healthcare, even utilities in this downtrend. And so be aware of these sectors as they are starting to shift. They essentially make up the entire market. And as these internals are starting to shift, ultimately the market is going to shift that direction as well. Commodities continue to see a great boom here in silver in that momentum zone, slight retracement of 1.5% in this momentum zone. Nice trend profile here on silver. GLD also another all-time high, continuing to move higher. And again, in relation to what's happening to the bond market, the U.S. dollar, interest rates, inflation, and gold prices rising. These are some clues that things are not quite as good as they should be, and nonetheless, stocks oftentimes will continue to move higher in the face of uncertainty. But as far as the overall uptrend, starting to weaken internally as well, and seeing this gold move, certainly it could be dealing with retracement along the way. We've got this upper range, and we always allow for about this much volatility inside of that momentum zone, and gold just keeps chugging higher, but could have some retracement. Let's jump over and look at USO, which is I had a day or two to upside, 2% yesterday, but you can see there down to the bottom end of that range has got some upside work to do to get through all of these resistance areas. If we take a look at the muscle stock group today, we're seeing a couple I wanted to point out. APLT, nice confirmation bar, that momentum zone, and the medical biomed space. Also seeing a nice move here in QNST. A nice breakout trade closing above that 20-25 range on increased volume, good solid confirmation bar. A little bit of a selling at the top. You can see a good solid bar where it's trading higher all day long. Just tells you you've got demand, and it closes into that demand. For the most part, if you see it retrace all the way back, something like this, then you know it's not quite as a bullish move, where you had a whole bunch of sellers that were sitting right here ready to take it back down lower. Ultimately, it moved higher over time, but in that shorter term, it moved back to the downside. So ideally, we want to see a little bit more solid bars, particularly as it's breaking out above these resistance areas. Those resistance areas are areas where there was selling supply starting to happen. Once it breaks through that, now bulls could start to take over. It becomes that floor now instead of the ceiling. Keep an eye on QNST today. That'll do it for today's update. Everyone have a fantastic day today.